Remakes. We're at this point in filmmaking that every studio is doing it. There's no prizes there, there's no guarantees, and even with beloved films that we love, let's face it, it's only a matter of time before one has to be like, alright, you're up next. Come on. But no. Come on, get up here. Your time is now, okay? We've been wanting to make a remake out of this, so your time is now. Come on, get up here. I don't care if you're a cult classic or anything. Come on, get up here.
How many people have you loved?
I'll never be alone.
The Crow 2024 is directed by Rupert Sanders with a screenplay by Zach Baylin and William Schneider. The film stars Bill Skarsgård, F.K. Twigs, and Danny Huston. According to IMDb's plot synopsis, soulmates Eric and Shelley are brutally murdered. Given a chance to save the love of his life, Eric must sacrifice himself and traverse the worlds of the living and the dead, seeking revenge. If you saw my review for the 1994 original film, you know how much I enjoy that movie. I think that it's had a lasting impact on not just comic book movies, but I just think on filmmaking as a whole due to its status of showing goth culture, but also just for the legacy that Brandon Lee left behind with that movie. Very much a film that will always live on with regards to him as an actor. And even the sequels couldn't live up to what that first film did. After that, they tried and none of them worked out. For 2 decades, since like 2008, there has been an attempt to remake the original movie. We're living in an age where remakes are everywhere, or sequels, requels, whatever. And a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people are fed up with it. I'm not saying myself, I'm just saying a lot of people are fed up with it. Fans weren't excited for it, but some held out hope that it could be good. Okay? Could be. Alright? But once the first image of Bill Skarsgård as Eric Draven came out, a lot of fans were turned off by this look, especially since a lot of people think that Skarsgård doesn't look like what Eric Draven, Brendan Lee looked like in the original. A lot of people were comparing him to pretty much Jared Leto's Joker than the Crow itself, which, yeah, I could see that. It's not hard to see the comparison and the similarities between the two, which, yeah, if a lot of people don't know, yeah, I don't like that version of the Joker, so, yeah, I could see why. After seeing it, I originally hated it when I walked out, okay? I was on the side of, after actually giving it a chance, I was like, no, this is terrible, this is awful. But after thinking about it, after that day, actually sitting down and mellowing out the thoughts and feelings I have, it wasn't bad. All right, it took me a long time. It took me a while to process it because I was just coming out of this notion of, yeah, this just really isn't that good. But then I'm like, you know what? At the very least, the film was just average at best. That's the best that I can say for myself. All right, I know a lot of fans aren't gonna like me saying that, but for me, it's all right. It's not terrible. Having actually thought about it, it's whatever. But before giving my promise with the movie, here are the positives that I found with it. The performances are fine. Bill Skarsgård does his best as Eric Draven. Skarsgård is a gifted actor. Don't get me wrong. Him and his family, especially his father, are terrific and gifted actors in the business. Him and his brother Alexander and his father, gifted, tremendous actors. But he is trying the best with what he is given, what he is saddled with, and I think he does make the most of it. I'm not sitting here saying, like, is he going to surpass Brandon Lee's? No. And I don't even think Skarsgård and the people involved in this film weren't trying to outdo Brandon Lee's impact or his performance. I think they wanted to go in a different direction, make him more a little bit of a drug addict type of deal than just a regular guy who was just living in a bad part of town with his fiance. And I think he does all right with what he is truly just saddled with. What he is reading is what he is trying to work with. FK Twigs is decent as Shelley. I don't know that much about this person, other than I found out she's only a musician, so I don't know what other roles she has done. She's alright, she's fine as Shelley. She's not like crazy amazing in it, but she's not like terrible. She's not awful. And just like with Skarsgård, she's trying. She legit is trying with what she's trying to work with the material that she is reading off of. Both Skarsgård and Twigs work well together with each other. They seem to have great chemistry even off screen, especially in interviews. They seem to have a really good rapport with one another. And so I did find some caring between Eric and Shelley, and for the most part I didn't mind their interactions with one another, and I at times they did kind of feel a little bit sweet, as much as it does drag on, but we'll get to that. And it's alright, it's fine. I think they work well. Danny Houston is enjoyable as the villain. He's nothing crazy, but he was fine. Danny Houston usually plays a lot of bad guys in films, so this is no different for him. I will say it is a little bit different in that compared to like Michael Wincock's performance in the original, his is more of like a demonic crime lord than just being a crime boss. So I'll give him credit. They're at least leaning into like maybe like what the supernatural elements of what they could do with the crow are, especially with the crow's powers that Eric is given. And so I'm fine with that. I mean, it's at least a little bit different than the original, but yeah, Dane Houston was enjoyable. He was all right. I don't usually mind him being in films always being the villain. Direction is admirable. Director Rupert Sanders does a decent job of having a different vibe and style than what the original had brought. At least it's just not a beat by beat remake, because that's usually always the case whenever it's a remake. The only thing I could say that could be a beat by beat is like them getting killed. But for the most part, it's not like a straight up like retelling of the original, but just, from modern day. It's very much its own thing. It's not comparative to the original. So I can give credit to Rupert Sanders and company that they didn't try to set out to just do a shot for shot repeat. They did try to spice things up, and yeah, he did the best with what he could do. The cinematography is stunning. Cinematographer Steve Ains shoots a gorgeous and slick film from beginning to end, going for a thriller more than a comic book look to it. It very much, it's kind of similar in the vein of like a John Wick-esque. I mean, this is distributed by Lionsgate, so it makes sense. But like very much like more of a sleek stylistic approach to more of a thriller than it is a comic book movie. So it's different in that regard. The action is enjoyable. Every action scene is bloody and brutal anytime Eric either is beaten or broken or shooting, cutting slash stabbing people. Kept the film fun to watch. At the very least, I wasn't bothered by the fights in this film. I did like in the trailer that you see, or if you find a clip of it, of the opera shootout, which I kind of liked. It was kind of cool seeing a lot of blood just coming out and just Eric dealing out a bunch of bad guys and just slicing and stabbing and shooting them up. It was kind of fun to watch. I won't deny that. Or even when he goes after one of the first people that he's trying to hunt down. There's a car fight. It's enjoyable. It was fun to experience. The production is stellar. The amount of effort that the production crew put in was effective. From the action scenes to the quality, all looks good. I can't deny that there is a very much stylistic approach to this film compared to the original. The original felt more grungy, more grounded. This one is grounded, but to an extent of it is trying to be more stylistic and a lot more different, and I do think the production quality of it does show that. But aside from that, most of this film suffers from its issues for me, so here are the negatives. The pacing and runtime is drawn out. The film takes too long to get through. With a runtime of 1 hour and 51 minutes, the movie could have been shortened up a bit. This movie drags at a snail's pace, and that is what I think really hurts this movie. The pacing and how long this story is drawn out is way too long. It almost gets to a point where you kind of sometimes are sitting there kind of like checking your watch, being like, man, are we gonna get through this? Because I got to work, I got other stuff to do, man. Can we get to the revenge stuff much quickly? And so I just don't think it needed to be pretty much almost 2 hours for this film in particular. I don't think it needed. As much as I usually say action movies should be at least around 2 hours, not always. I should reframe that. I think not always doesn't need to be, but for this case, I don't think it needed to. The story is boring. Though different from the original, it lacks excitement and depth. It just feels hollow. As much as there was an effort to make this different, and as much as this one wanted to emphasize Shelley's death and who she was and what Eric loves about her and what she means to him. I get it. In the original, that was the driving force for Eric, but you didn't really see much of Shelley. But it was through flashbacks and whatnot in the original movie. Versus here, you're experiencing their love for the first time and their chemistry with one another. And I just feel like it's just drawn out and it's just not as in depth or as exciting how Eric really goes after these guys versus the original. The original had grit, it had focus. This one, in a way, had focus, but the grit just wasn't as strong as how that original movie came off as. The visuals are everywhere. There's too much CGI and green screen usage that it becomes just distracting in parts. Less is better, if you ask me. Like the fact that when Eric dies is being the person that talks about Crow and the spirit and whatnot, and it's just this big CGI area, very much green screen heavy. But then you also have the Crow that follows Eric. In the original, they actually had a crow. They actually had an actual crow for it to fly around and follow Eric. This, it's CGI, and it became very distracting and it became unnecessary on how it looked. There was just way too much of that, and I think there could have been less of it. The characters are bland. Nothing about these characters are interesting. They're just empty from start to finish. They all just feel empty in a way. They just don't feel like there is of urgency, or at the very least you are intrigued by them. In the original, Eric was intriguing not because of who he is as a character, but also because of Brandon Lee. He pulls you in, along with some of the other actors like Ernie Hudson. And I just feel like this movie just didn't pull you in. It just kind of felt like you're just kind of going through what the movie is with what their characters are, and you just are kind of just watching and seeing where this goes. But in the end, you're not as invested as what that original movie did. The music is forgettable. Composer Volker Bertelmann makes a score that falls flat with how it sounds in the film. Huge letdown from the original film and how that score implemented the gothic nature and tone of film as well as the licensed music. Here, music just doesn't feel as gothic as it's trying to be, or trying to be as edgy as it can be. It just kind of feels like a generic thriller soundtrack that you would listen to, and there's some licensed music, but even then it's kind of like what you would expect to hear in a movie like this for a thriller. In the end, it wasn't exciting enough with how it's presented. The movie just lacks the atmosphere and grit that the original movie brought so well and is widely remembered, more than why I think this one won't be. Overall, my reaction, not hating, but just meh, it's alright. I don't necessarily think this is the worst thing, but I do think that there was potential for it to be better, and it just didn't overcome its problems. So I'm gonna give The Crow 2024 remake a 5 out of 10. It's alright. It's not something that I don't think anybody's gonna absolutely hate unless you're a fan of maybe the comics or the original movie. But you're just kind of like, all right, well that happened. All right, I don't see what the point of it was other than just to have it. That's really it. There's nothing too exciting for it, especially for Lionsgate. This and Borderlands, they weren't doing well. So that is it. That is all of August, and now the summer movies are over. Yay! Now we're just gonna jump into September, starting with when I watched Beetlejuice before seeing Beetlejuice, and then the rest of the September films. So yes, look forward to those reviews and other movie TV show reviews coming soon.